your potatoes. Now seriously, just like everything else we plant, it pays to prepare in advance. For instance, with potatoes, you have to practice crop rotation. That means you don't want to plant your potatoes where you've planted them in the last 4 years, and this also includes members of the Solanaceae family, the same family that potatoes are in, such as your tomatoes, your eggplants, and your peppers, okay? And the second thing to reduce diseases and pests is to make sure the potatoes you plant are certified seed potatoes. And what this means is that before they're even shipped to the nursery where you buy them at, notice not the grocery store, they go through a state inspection for diseases and pests. And if it passes, then it can be sent to the nursery where you buy them at. And the third thing I like to do is to coat my potatoes in sulfur powder. So I wet them in a bucket for just a little bit. I take them out and I mix them in this bucket of sulfur. And this is very important because sulfur, dusting it with sulfur, is shown to reduce diseases such as your blights and also your insect problems from insects such as your Colorado potato beetle. And I can personally testify that when I used to not use sulfur, I had lower yields. And once I started to use sulfur, I noticed far less pests and diseases in my potato crop, okay? So when can you plant potatoes? Well, when the soil reaches 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 3 weeks before the last expected frost in the springtime. However, I like to wait about 4 to 6 weeks after this period because I'm more concerned about having a nice harvest of potatoes late in the fall that's going to last me throughout the beautiful wintertime and on into the spring. You just have to make sure you have 90 to 120 days before the fall frost. That's 3 to 4 months before the fall frost comes, okay? And how do you plant your potatoes? Well, what I did, I came through with my tiller, and I do the zone tilling once again, and I go over the top of this just very lightly to mix up the plants. And then I come through and I take all those plants out before I go through and really mix the soil because a lot of those roots from these plants and from the weeds can then reestablish themselves. I take that out and then you could spread manures or compost or your synthetic fertilizer on top of the soil here, come through your tiller and really mix it into the bulk of the soil profile, okay? I see some people go through and they dig a nice deep trench. And that takes a lot of time. And I don't have time for that. And then I see people fill the whole thing up with manures and compost. But that's way too much, okay? If you use too much compost, there's going to be an excess of phosphorus in the soil, which leaches when it rains, and then it goes and causes pollution in the watershed, okay? This is a very serious problem that we have to reduce, okay? That's why I like to mix my fertilizers into the bulk of the soil profile, okay? Then you come through and you want to plant them about a foot to 18 inches apart, 12 to 18 inches apart. You plant them about 3 inches into the soil, and what I do is, you see these nice long tubers growing out of them? I just plant the entire potato, okay? I don't cut it up into eyes like other people do, but if you do that, make sure you let it dry for a few days so that scab is going to heal before you plant it. But like I said, I just plant the whole potato, make sure it has plenty of sulfur. And the reason I plant the whole potato is so that this potato now has all this extra food and energy to send up so that it can grow. And the other added benefit of waiting a few weeks after you can plant them is that these tubers are going to be longer, so you can plant the whole potato in the ground and you can cover that up, and these tubers are going to be out of the soil. And they're going to turn into leaves very, very shortly, much more fastly than if you planted the entire thing underneath the soil, okay? And with potatoes, we're going to have to hill them. So right here in the beginning, I make a little hill, just a little bit. And throughout the growing season, you keep hilling, only so that you have, a few inches of the plant leaves that are in the air, okay? You want to make sure you hill because the potatoes will turn green and become poisonous if they're exposed to the sun. And then what I'm going to do to hill is I'll come through with my tiller and I'll till up all this section here. And then I'll take all that extra soil from here and I'll keep hilling my potatoes. And what I like to do is just add a little bit of grass clippings, just a very small amount around each of the plants, just to conserve moisture for these potatoes. They need about 1.5 inches of water a week. Now, potatoes, growing them is kind of destructive to the soil because you have to turn it over so many times to hill them. And so after the final hilling, towards the end of the season, that's when I'll come through with straw and I'll mulch this entire area so that the soil is not exposed. That's also why we have to practice crop rotation with potatoes, because if we turn the soil over way too much, then we increase the breakdown of organic matter, and that's not good. Ah, man, this is wonderful. Oh, well, I can't wait to eat my potatoes.